to be incredibly brilliant at looking back at the past, at history, at the things we know and criticising it and blaming us all for it. Yeah. But every time anyone's asked to look further than 2 days in the future, they get it wrong every single time.
And welcome back to Headliners. Tuesday's Guardian to kick off the second half or third quarter. We have Tuesday's Guardian, and it turns out the population bomb may be more of a population whoopee cushion.
Well, exactly. World population bomb may never go off as feared, study finds. Quelle surprise, Simon.
Yeah.
Bonnet de douche, Rodney. Yeah. Because, you know, this is just on the back of a number of predictions. I mean, this actually... I think The Population Bomb was a book by Dr Paul Ehrlich.
That's right.
Which is in 1968.
Correct.
In which... it's been spoken about a lot recently, in which he said by the end of the 70s, because of overpopulation, the world would starve, and we find ourselves...
There will be hundreds of millions of people dead. We have basically may as well write off India. It's too late to save India. There's no way. Extraordinary.
And, you know, what are we, 55...
And this very organisation who've come up with this latest survey is the Club of Rome, who first produced a report called The Limits to Growth, I think, around that same time, maybe even earlier, which is another one which was just absolutely wild and way off.
Probably one of the people that were predicting an ice age during the 80s. Yeah. I mean, it's 55 years later, and we're now saying it's unlikely to happen, and everyone's fat.
Yeah.
So there has been no starving.
No. I mean, there has been technological advances in agriculture, in fertiliser, in hydroponics, blah, blah, blah. There's been a lot of advances which have confounded what might have been their modelling, but there always have been.
Yeah, of course.
And there always will be. Who knows? Or maybe one day
they weren't factored in, and what they're factoring into this study, which makes it somewhat unique, is if, as the developing world gets more money, becomes more educated, then they're going to have less kids, and that's going to happen. And more importantly, the more that's invested in that part of the world, and this, I think, do you remember Constantine? Christensen?
Yeah.
He did that speech at the Oxford Union recently, where he basically said that. He said, if Indians don't care about...
No.
They're the biggest polluters, and they want to feed their kids and give them a life.
Good lives.
Yeah, exactly. The quicker that we can make their lives better or help...
Well, currently, even India is below replacement level, amazingly below replacement.
Incredible.
Almost everywhere. All the places that 10 years ago were causing fear and consternation in Central America, the open border across Mexico... They are right down. I think they may be around 2.2. The only part of the world where there is still above replacement level fertility is sub-Saharan Africa, and that is possibly still a kind of a mindset that came from an era when your children would be lucky to make it past the age of 5.
I just want to say that I read a thing about how they find it very difficult to get contraception to the women in sub-Saharan Africa.
That's where all of it's got to be aimed. But yeah, of course, the thing with the Club of Rome is they see this as entirely a good thing, right? Because it's easing off pressure, but they aren't really addressing themselves to the problem of an ageing population.
No.
So if we don't continue to have kids, then we've got a different problem, right?
We seem to be incredibly brilliant at looking back at the past, at history, at the things we know and criticising it and blaming us all for it. Yeah. But every time anyone's asked to look further than 2 days in the future, they get it wrong every single time.
And I mean, these people are well-healed, you know. They're well remunerated for their efforts. The Club of Rome is not some bunch of guys standing around a brazier.
No.
You know what I reckon? I reckon we'll stuff it right up. I've got to stop doing that. Tuesday's